In 2017, all 4 major scouting agencies ranked Marvin Bagley as the #1 best high school prospect in the whole country. Even more impressively, ESPN gave him an astronomical rating of 98. Bagley joined a handful of players in history who were rated 98 or higher by the scouts. And at the time of graduating high school, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that this guy is a generational talent, the consensus best player of his class, a future superstar bound for success. So not only did he slip down the draft a little bit, but by the age of 25, he became a bench warmer. The dude was playing 8 minutes a game for the Wizards, before transporting his warm seats to Memphis. Yes, you heard that right, 8 minutes a game for the Washington freaking Wizards of all teams. If you can't get minutes on the worst team in the league, do you still deserve to be in the NBA? How's it going, folks? Today we're going to take a detailed look into how one of the NBA's most anticipated prospects turned into this. A complete laughingstock, whose career was plagued with problems on the courts and all the unnecessary drama off of it.
The Sacramento Kings select Marvin Bagley III from Duke University.
Now, we all know what happened in the 2018 draft, where Sacramento selected Marvin Bagley with the 2nd overall pick, ahead of Luka. But believe it or not, the doubts of Bagley started way before that, at Duke. One glance at Bagley's numbers and accolades, and you would think he is by far the most prominent prospect ever. First team across the board, a consensus All-American, the ACC Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year, while leading his conference in points, rebounds, and field goal percentage. Bagley, who simply outjumped, out-hustled, and was more physically dominant than anyone in high school, found out that college was a breeze as well. But at the same time, for a man who seemed invincible, his weaknesses started to show. One scout was quoted saying, "His low post game needs to get better, along with his outside shooting. While he's a great rebounder, it's mainly due to his pure athleticism as opposed to his rebounding fundamentals, nor is he a true rim protector." It turns out this scout hit the nail on the head, because these are all red flags. The lack of offense and the lack of fundamentals means his game will less likely translate to the NBA, compared to somebody else who's more skilled. Ironically, Bagley has no bag. That's mainly why DeAndre Ayton got picked ahead of him, as everyone believed his game was more polished and refined. There's also this interesting fact that I found recently which got me curious. Duke has produced over 100 NBA players throughout the history of their basketball program. That's like the 3rd most among all colleges, yet they've never produced a single MVP, ever. Grant Hill was the closest Duke alumni to win it, finishing 3rd in the MVP race in 1997. As prominent as Duke basketball is, they found success due to their system, and they recruit players who fit into the style of basketball they envision. Marvin Bagley looked phenomenal at Duke because he was the perfect player for their system and the type of big man that greatly benefits from their roster construction. Unfortunately, more often than not, when Duke players enter the NBA, there's been more busts in recent years than otherwise, because they find it hard to adapt when the entire team isn't built to complement them. Additionally, Bagley's physical stature also became a point of critique. For instance, he's 6'10" barefoot with a 7'1" wingspan, which is much shorter than the average NBA center. He was also quite lanky and underweight, so the sheer physical dominance he displayed in college would certainly not translate to the pros. Regardless, he showed enough to still be selected with the #2 pick, as the scouts projected he'd develop into a player similar to Blake Griffin or Amari Stoudemire.
Steps in front for the ball. Murphy had the ball. Stoudemire with the dunk. Physical game.
Needless to say, that was a very hopeful projection. The 2018 draft was an anomaly, but in a good way. So many good players who became staples of the league today came from that class. But what's even more intriguing is that so many players came in and produced right away. From Luka and Trey's immaculate scoring and playmaking, and even DeAndre Ayton's presence in the paint, and SGA among others who became the first of this class to win MVP. Every top 5 pick had a positive impact on their team one way or another, except for the man himself. Immediately upon his NBA debut, he joined a very discombobulated version of the Sacramento Kings, which doesn't tell you much because they're always discombobulated. This version of the Kings in particular was going through a rebuilding phase, as they just drafted De'Aaron Fox the year prior, along with a smattering of high draft picks who they were still experimenting with. In Bagley's rookie season, Buddy Hield led the Kings in scoring, and whenever Buddy Hield is the first option on a team, it probably means your team is still trying to figure it out. For Bagley, you'd imagine he had a good season just by looking at his raw numbers, as he scored 15 points a game on 25 minutes per game off the bench. That's not bad, but his impact was very much in the negative, as evident by his adjusted on-off numbers. Even worse that wasn't mentioned was how horrendous he was defensively. The dude looked completely lost when it came to rotations or awareness of where he should be or when he should react. No longer can he outrun and outjump his opponents when most centers are bigger, stronger, and longer than he is. Without his athletic advantages, all that's left is a player without any skills except for dunking. Perhaps the scouts were right, after all, and he had a long way to go before he can contribute to winning. Sadly, Sacramento was not the best place for his development. After his rookie year concluded, the Kings basically overhauled their entire coaching staff, to the surprise of many. In the summer of 2019, Kings GM Vlade Divac fired head coach Dave Joerger after finishing with a 39-43 record. Funny enough, at the time, that was the Kings' best record since 2006, and Joerger looked like he was making progress with this young squad.
Vlade, I don't think anybody would doubt where Joerger was as far as developing players, and he had a good coaching staff right behind him. What happens to the rest of the group?
It makes sense. I want my coach to be right next to me, and we can talk about the team and what's out there for us to make our team better. I want my coach on the same page. Yeah.
Replacing him with Luke Walton, along with new assistants and a brand new game plan, which preferred the Kings to play more up-tempo, faster, and take advantage of their young legs to outrun and outshoot opponents. In theory, it seemed like a good plan, except Bagley suffered a severe thumb fracture, and then a foot injury. Combined with the COVID pandemic, it was a chaotic second year for Bagley, which saw him appear in just 13 games. His sophomore year hindered his development greatly. Now this is where things spiraled out of control. With his career already stunted by injury, it got even worse when his relationship with the organization soured. It started with a simple tweet from Marvin Bagley's father. "Please trade Marvin Bagley ASAP. Love Coach Bagley." This happened right after the Kings lost to the Rockets, and Bagley didn't get much playing time. It wasn't just a random tweet, though. Bagley's frustrations were brewing, and they finally rose to the surface. His lack of minutes, along with getting benched in the fourth quarter repeatedly, put him over the edge. In his third season, his role on the team was decreasing, as he didn't fit well with the Kings' guard-dominant play. You'd imagine a guy like him would do very well in the pick and roll with two elite guards, but he only managed 1.05 points per possession as the roll man, which ranked in the 39th percentile. The reason for his struggles stems from his inability to do anything if he sees a defender. He literally only thrives when he catches the ball right at the basket, but anywhere further than that, outside of 3 feet, Bagley can't buy a bucket to save his life. Never mind passing the ball, he's never had good court vision. The 2021 offseason was a highly important time for not just Bagley, but everyone from the 2018 class. It was the deadline to get an extension on their rookie contracts, and he could not reach an agreement with the Kings. After a long-winded negotiation going back and forth, Bagley wanted way more money than expected. In fact, the Kings weren't even sure they wanted to keep him, and instead let another season play out and see if he made improvements. It was a smart decision, one of the few smart decisions the Kings made. But then, things got even uglier. Before their first game of the season, the Kings straight up told Marvin Bagley that he would not be getting any minutes. Then Bagley told his agent, Jeff Schwartz of Excel Sports, and Schwartz quickly went on Twitter to make this statement. Sacramento has informed Marvin Bagley he is not in the opening night rotation, which is completely baffling. It's clear they have no plans for him in the future, and yet they passed on potential deals at last year's deadline and this summer based on value. Instead, they chose to bring him back but not play him, a move completely contradictory to their value argument. This is a case study in mismanagement by the Kings organization. On one hand, it makes sense why Bagley's agent was upset, because if Bagley doesn't get paid, he doesn't either. Bagley registered DNPs in 12 of his first 13 games of the season, and it's obvious that he wasn't part of the Kings' future anymore, or their present. On the other hand, it was Bagley's own fault he fell out of the rotation. Prior to that, in training camp, he was getting outworked and outplayed by Richaun Holmes, of all people. It's not like he lost his starting spot for no reason. Bagley was simply not good enough to be in the rotation, and the coaches gave up on him too. It's one thing to be outskilled by your opponents, it's another thing to be outworked. In fact, his relationship with Luke Walton became so bad, he refused to even check into the game when he got called up.
Did Marvin decline to go into
Yeah,
that game?
look, again, I'm not getting into anything that happens within our group that's between our group. So
it was at this point where Bagley's time in Sacramento was over. And with the arrival of Domantas Sabonis, Bagley was gone by the trade deadline. Over the years, Bagley had his ups and downs, well, mostly down, but his brief stint in Detroit was somewhat optimistic. For a short while, he had a resurgence, and even got rewarded with a 3-year, $37 million deal. With all his weaknesses, Bagley worked hard to simplify his game and play within his role. Coupled with rising young point guard Cade Cunningham, Bagley became a terrific lob threat, and with his increased effort defensively, he made staggering improvements. For the first time in his career, Bagley wasn't a drain on his team anymore, albeit a horrendous team, but a team nonetheless. Despite his efforts, however, he still wasn't a guy who the Pistons believed in. Sure, he had some good moments, even great moments, but what made him even more valuable was his friendly contract, which turned him into a very attractive, very affordable trade piece. And which team was willing to take on hopeless young prospects? The Wizards, of course. In DC, his career rotted away at the end of the bench, as he played 8 minutes a game, by far the lowest of his life. Even with a trade to the Grizzlies, a playoff team, Bagley still had trouble cracking the rotation. On the bright side, when he got minutes in the playoffs, he went a ridiculous 8 for 8 from the field, in a 51-point loss. Could this be a turning point of Bagley's career, and prove that he can contribute even against the NBA's #1 defense? Or is it another flash in the pan, like we've seen time and time again? Hilariously, that was his first ever playoff game. Of course, the days of hoping and dreaming Bagley could live up to his generational expectations, those are long gone. We've come to terms with the fact he'll never be a star, and maybe never a rotation player again. The expectation now is how long can Marvin Bagley remain in the NBA? So what is Marvin Bagley's legacy? In reality, he'll always be remembered as the bust who got drafted right before Luka Doncic. Vlade Divac once said he made this decision because they already had De'Aaron Fox, and they needed a big man. And maybe Luka's father had something to do with it, as he didn't have a good relationship with him. It's a weird theory, but maybe he truly did believe Bagley was the best prospect in the world. This brings up a funny what-if scenario. Had the Kings drafted Luka, would they also have traded him to the Lakers? Knowing the Kings, yeah, probably. It's hard for me to say there was ever a bright spot of Bagley's career, because right when he stepped foot on the NBA court, it was obvious he was outmatched. His advantages of being a high-motor, energetic, athletic beast of a center proved to be ineffective in an era where you need to have other skills to thrive as a big man. You need to shoot, you need to dribble, you need to pass or defend the paint, you need to do at least one of these things. You need some sort of additional skills if you want to maintain your spot in the league. Bagley never developed those skills fast enough, combined with his myriad of injuries at the worst possible time, it all led to his ultimate demise and his failure to succeed at the NBA level. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on the great Marvin Bagley. Can you imagine him being a valuable piece on any team? Or even a rotation player in the future? Or do you see him falling out of the NBA when his contract expires in 2026? Or do you see him falling out of the NBA when his contract expires? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.